So, thank you for being here. I am going to try and talk a little bit about the future of skills today, in a world that's now full of AI, or just about to be full of AI. So, three things that I want you hopefully to take away today is one, how has AI changed the game? I think you hear a lot about it here at the conference. Two, what stays valuable? And then three, what can we learn to try and stay ahead and still be relevant in a few years? So unless you have been hiding under a rock, half of this conference is about AI, but there's a lot of consequences around skills as well. IBM already put 7,500 jobs or so on hold, thinking they'll automate this in the near future. CNET started publishing articles that were entirely written by AI before they got some pushback and stopped the project. And the World Economic Forum did a survey where they got to the conclusion where about 42% of business tasks would be automated by 2027. That's 4 years from now. We're talking about almost half of the skills that we would use in a business context. So who am I to talk about some of this? I'm the CEO of Mindstone. We turn daily learning into quantifiable skills that employers recognize. Previously, I built a company called Super Awesome that was acquired by Epic Games. I am a venture partner and a limited partner to Emerge Education, one of the most active early-stage education venture funds in Europe. And I'm an active angel in 40-odd different companies, including Learnerbly, that helps optimize the L&D spend in companies. So first thing to try and figure out, or at least as I was trying to think through this, is are there any parallels that we can learn from? And I think, and I'll try and make the case for it today, that we can learn a lot from what has happened in software engineering over the last 15 years to try and understand what might be ahead for all the other industries and jobs that are about to get automated. 15 years ago, your ability to code as an engineer was a key differentiator. The mere fact that you understood a language, a coding language that somebody else didn't, was enough to get you a job, and it would actually make you a productive member in a company. Today, Node.js alone, which is one of the more popular execution environments, has more than 2 million different modules that engineers use to do their job day to day. A module for an engineer is basically an equivalent of an AI. You give it some data, it transforms it, you get something back, you might send it to another module, it transforms it again, you get it back, and basically your role today as an engineer would be to combine the result of these modules into something that is more than the sum of its parts, something that actually works. And so I think what is happening with AI is very similar. We're seeing more and more of these vertical AIs that are starting to automate parts of our job, creating a marketing strategy, writing technical documentation, even creating a legal argument. These are all things that are starting to get automated, and you can compare them to modules for an engineer. So you might think that this is something that is very far in the future. Today already everyone's aware of Jasper, I think. Everyone talks about how you can use AI to produce blog posts and ads and things like that. You might also be aware of Midjourney that creates images. Everyone will have seen these go viral everywhere. But what you might not be aware of yet is Harvey, for example, creates your legal arguments, writes your contracts for you. Or Ultimate, that entirely automate the customer service function. Not replace parts of it. It's an actual full-on one-to-one replacement for customer service. CanMigo is a personal tutor that gives you answers based on your profile and where you might get stuck from Khan Academy. And one of my personal favorites is a plugin to ChatGPT today. It's called AI Council. It takes an argument and then figures out which are the 5 experts in the world that might have something interesting to say on the topic with different viewpoints. And it then gives you all 5 different viewpoints so that you're not stuck on your one single view of the world, but instead you get different views at the same time. And if you thought that was an interesting starting point, behind me you have a map of the AI APIs that exist today. These are not the apps that automate. These are the building blocks that the other thousands of startups busy building today are using to build their solutions. Each one of them trying to attack different functions, different tasks in our respective roles. So the amount of automation that you're going to be looking at in the next 6 months, 2 years or so is an order of magnitude bigger to what you see behind me on the screen. Now, if we can learn from software engineering, or at least some of these things might give us an interesting indication. I thought, okay, today, software engineers that already live in that world, the people that hire these software engineers, what are the skills they are looking for? If we have to start using these modules, these agents, and glue them together in different ways, what would be the interesting things to look at? And so I'm part of one of the biggest CTO groups in the world. I asked a few hundred CTOs, what are the criteria they look for when they're hiring engineers? And the three skills that came back are an ability to collaborate, an ability to learn, and an ability to problem solve. And you will have noticed that the ability to code didn't even make the top three. It's not there. It was part of the decision set, just to be clear. It just didn't make the top three. And then Pearson and Google recently did a study as well about which would be the skills that are most in demand in 2026. Pearson is one of the biggest education groups in the world. I imagine you know Google. And you can see that it came to very similar conclusions. The ability to collaborate, the ability to learn, and the ability to communicate, contextualize, and work with other people. Now, what do we do with this? How can we actually build these skills? And this is where I think it becomes even more interesting, because AI also has some of the answers to this. There's an interesting book by David Epstein called Range, and he talks about skill development in two different environments, kind environments and wicked environments. At a high level, kind environments are environments where you have a fast feedback loop. It's very easy to understand when you do something wrong, and you can adapt it, try again, and go through many iterations. A good example of a kind environment is golfing. You hit a ball, doesn't go where you want it to go, you figure out or try to figure out what you did wrong, you adjust, you try again, maybe it goes a little bit better, and you can just repeat that over and over. It's a kind environment, easy to learn from. A wicked environment is the opposite. It's where the feedback takes a long time and the feedback is ambiguous. Good example of this would be investing. You make a call today, 10 years from now you might get a result, and you still don't know, independent of the result, was that you? Did you make a good decision? What happened in the middle? Very hard to learn from. Now, what AI does, so you think about this cycle, right? Action, result, feedback, as you go through. AI gives us the ability to accelerate to these steps pretty dramatically. It allows you to extrapolate scenarios very fast. It allows you to contextualize what is going on, and it allows you to create benchmarks almost instantly after you make a decision, before you get a result. Basically, it's able to simulate the result, which then creates that feedback loop for yourself, where you can go through 3 or 4 different iterations, question your own decisions, and it allows you to shorten that feedback loop, or at least the time to the result, and then learn from that. It does the same from a feedback perspective. It's unemotional, so you can actually just go back and forth, and you don't feel attacked when you get the feedback comes back. It's always ready for you, and it can be as detailed as you need it to be. You can always ask follow-up questions, and it will never get tired of that. Again, it's able to simulate this feedback in a way that the wicked environments that were so hard to learn from start to look and act more like a kind environment before. The accelerated learning that comes from this is something that I'm really excited by, and something that I hope we can all leverage to build these 3 skills that I was talking about before. So I think this is a once-in-a-lifetime tipping point. The skills around, or the world around us, is changing so fast that the time any particular skill stays relevant is quickly dropping under the time it takes a degree in the first place, or to get a certificate. And so the entire system that we have built up at the moment relies on these signaling processes that take longer to acquire than the relevancy of the skill that we're building. Today, we're building in the moment. We are learning from everything and everyone around us. We're overloaded by information, but the ways that the systems we built to try and keep track of them are just no longer up to date. They're not able to keep pace. And employers have recognized this. Well, 76% or so are now starting to look at skill-based hiring, moving away from traditional degrees and other ways of signaling. And about 88% have started to move to accepting micro-credentials, getting smaller and smaller units of these skills that we're trying to acquire. But I would argue that this is just a band-aid on a problem within a system that is no longer apt for purpose. And again, I would look to software engineering. How does software engineering think about signaling of skills? What have we required? What can we do? And there are 2 big platforms that stand out to me: GitHub and Stack Overflow. For those of you that are not familiar with these platforms, GitHub is basically a repository where engineers would submit their code and they can showcase the work that they have done in the past. It's kind of like a portfolio for engineers. And then Stack Overflow is a question and answer forum. It's where an engineer goes to ask a question and others answer them. Good questions get upvoted, bad questions get downvoted over time. You construct a profile. That profile, both GitHub and Stack Overflow, today often get you more interviews than a degree from a top-tier university, because they show that you are actually able to create things, that you have acquired these skills. So this is something we're working on. I think many others will be working on this as well. But I think that we will move towards some way of creating a portfolio of all of our respective jobs, and then being able to showcase that in a way that is recognized, understood by the employers that are looking for the skills that we are building. So what can you do today? Where do you start? First thing, short term, that I would encourage everyone to do is suspend your disbelief. If you think that AI is not going to go automate part of your job, there's a very high chance that it likely will. You have only to win from suspending your disbelief and trying to see how you can start to automate yourself and augment everything you're doing. It's the people that don't lean in that will at some point get surprised by what's coming. In the long term, train these 3 skills: collaboration, problem solving, learning. Learning with AI, with people and AI. Use it to accelerate and make sure that you can stay ahead. There's no reason that you have to fall behind. You can actually use it to learn faster. The differentiator here is to consider AI as a co-pilot, enhancing everything you're doing. So to paraphrase William Gibson, the future of skills is already here. It's just unevenly distributed at the moment. Thank you very much.